We're going to go into 2025 knowing some stuff about cheddar, dinero, money, chavo, whatever you have a slang for it. We're going to we're going to handle some money. I have a financial planner coming, you name it. I already got some people lined up. So that's what we're going to do for October. All right, Paul, take it away because I'm hogging up time here.
No worries. This one actually, I'll do my best to stay tried and true to the promotion on the slide. It was, the secret to scalability. Success made simple. So two things about this. It is really simple, and that's what makes it so tough sometimes. And Nancy knows this. Sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to really get and keep in. And I mean, they know this because they work with us. They work with us owners that love complexity sometimes, and they're experts at simplifying. And but in this particular thing that I'm going to take up. I think is a bit of a secret because it is so simple. So there's a little mystery sandwich for you. Nancy doesn't even know what I'm going to cover because I haven't told her. She doesn't know, but
I never know. And the lemonade, I like so have the first conversation that I had with Matt in my head that I announced that as the topic, even though he like completely changed the topic and had this amazing topic. Paul also works with Uplift, and through Paul, through somebody else is how I got to Uplift. So Paul can also speak on how amazing they are. Like we love them. Like I mean, I just like I was telling him on the lemonade, I can't live without Uplift. But Paul uses them too. So adult, pediatric, I mean, they know their stuff and they work with you and they learn, they really study you. You particularly like you think, oh, I'll just be another pediatric practice or another a PT practice. You're not with them. They get your voice. And to me, that's super important. But anyway, this is the Paul Silovsky CEO Rebound Physical Therapy Hour. So I'm gonna turn it over to him and stop yakking.
there you go. So on this subject of scalability, I typically, honestly, I end up delivering when these guys ask me, hey, what's our next topic or what's our next two topics? I take things that I'm actually working on. So just to be totally transparent, I'll take a problem I've recently solved or in the process of solving. We are definitely interested in scaling. While we've been able to scale our profitability over the years, now I want to scale with some more clinics and then partnerships. And you'll see inside of this some of the key elements that I believe go into that. We will compare it to some folks in some other industries that have definitely scaled. But when I'm talking about scalability, because that can be viewed a number of ways, you can really pick this apart. It can have a number of expanded definitions. I'm referring to an organization's capacity to grow and adapt effectively when you're faced with increased demand or need for expansion, right? And so a couple of key points here. How do you perform well? This is like an evaluation point for you. How do you perform well under an expanding workload? And you'll find that this tool helps handle that. So I'm kind of setting up for that. And this applies to both putting in, systems, and what I mean by that is, like Survival Strategies has so many great systems in areas of your company, right? Systematizing, you hear this term all the time. So it's not just like computer networks or IT systems and stuff like that. We're talking about actual, workflow systems for your organization. I mean, billing collections, obviously, for us would be a system, but so would PR and marketing or referral relations. So those, to me, those are programs that could be set up as systems. But you want to be able to scale your company so you can maintain and improve your profit margins as you expand. That's one thing I see some folks get into as they expand. Someone tells me, hey, oh wow, we've got 10 clinics and we're doing blah, but their profits are 50% of a group that's got 2 or 3 clinics. It's just totally kicking butt, and they've scaled their profitability, and they've certainly shown growth in volume. That company that's got 10 clinics may not be worth any more without without what we're going to be talking about here for sure. So it's really an economies of scale. An organization can benefit from economy of scales when if you get good at the subject of administration, which we're going to get into, which Survival Strategies is so good at training owners to be executives and owners. They don't do any training in the realm of therapies. They don't do anything in our technical trades. But when you get systematized to scale, you actually can reduce your cost for providing. It's actually less expensive per visit, if you will, for being able to provide all the support services, everything non-technical. I mean, and I think, and I'm pretty sure this is true across the board, no matter whether you're adult pediatrics. I mean, our largest expense is certainly our payroll, and of that's burned up majority by our professional staff. So you have to build everything else around that so that it's efficient for those guys and support that. So you're looking at these administrative activities like HR and marketing and finance and billing and collections and your quality assurance. Those things can totally be systematized to support a more efficient and more profitable visit, to where it's supporting more and more visits in a profitable range. And then obviously there's all kinds of technology and customer acquisition systems out there. And I think, quite honestly, I can tell you just as a comparative, I mean, some of these tech companies get such higher multiples than we do and probably will ever get. They're gonna be definitely up in the double digit multiples of their earnings at sale, if someone was interested in scaling up to the point of a point of sale. So these are just different things I wanted to look at with regard to just the subject of scalability. So before I get into this really cute, simple formula that I'm going to show you, I want to make a comment here on two basic understandings that I want to get with you guys before you start to scale. And by the way, just to be fair, because I normally have slides, I made some slides for this. I'm having some technical challenges here because I'm off site, I'm off location, and there's a couple bugs, but I'm happy to send anybody that wants this slide. There's only like 7 or 8 slides that have these core basics on it. This is one of them. So there's 2 basic understandings that you need to know before we dive into this special formula I'm going to show you. Because your expansion is really tied to your ability to, for your new business to pay for itself plus, right? You're looking for, what am I going to have to lean into to make it profitable to expand with good people, all doing their job and with good, good systems and good policy in place. So scalability requires 2 basic understandings, and that's one, the knowledge of how to do something. Okay, and I'm going to break this knowledge point down here because knowledge is super important, and actual technology. Now, this subject of technology, and I'll start with that. What is a technology? There's all kinds of technologies out there. I believe that physical therapy is a technology. I believe that OT is a technology, and speech is a technology, and we can go across the professional spectrums, and there's a technology. I like to use there's an engineering definition of a truth. It's something that that is a technology. In other words, it's something that's can be applied and works. In engineering, they use a definition of truth. It's something that works 100% of the time. Okay, and if you really want to get into the precise action of scaling, you have to really distill down in your organization what are the key points of knowledge that people need to have about you and your company. Or obviously, to be a PT, I have to have a base of knowledge, a minimum competency when I graduated way back in the day, right? And we always are working on expanding those skills, but everybody gets a baseline of knowledge that makes them that that professional. So there's basic understandings that you must have in order to be successful at all. But the technology part of it is really the application or the art or science of applying something. It's application. It's not just the knowledge of it. So you've got knowledge of something, and a technology would mean you can actually apply it. That you are adept at knowing that it'll work. If you do it, if someone follows your processes, your procedures, or your methods of delivery, or we'll get into administration in a second, it will work if they actually do it 100% of the time, right? Um, so, you look at the organizations outside of our industry that have scaled, whether you look at Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or whatever, they're operating off of standard set procedures. They're, however they make that chicken, is a standard procedure. There's a knowledge base to it. There's a standard procedure. Same thing with the coffee. Same thing with how they market and they message and how they want their public greeted. I mean, the whole my pleasure thing, at Chick-fil-A is a policy. It's a policy of the organization. It's a standard that has to be there or must be met for you to be part of the Chick-fil-A experience or whatever. It doesn't matter. So I'm saying these things because you have to really look inside your organization and go, well, what is the base level of knowledge that everybody must have? What are the basic technologies that must be known? Now, in any business, I'm not just talking about our healthcare business now, there's a minimum of 2 technologies in any business or service. There's the technology of what you do, and I'm now, positioning myself not against, but next to survival strategies. One thing survival strategies will never do is tell you how to do physical therapy or occupational therapy or speech therapy or take care of kids. They'll never get into that because they don't have the knowledge or training or skill. But the 2 technologies are the technology of what you do, and hopefully all of us are. I know all of us believe that we're good at it, right? We're good at it. That it's exchangeable with the public, and there is a universal way in which it's applied. And if you want to make your organization larger, you're going to have to make sure the technology of what you do can be universally applied. That is something that I've never engaged with survival strategies. They do not deal with the technical delivery division of your company as far as the technology of your professional skill. But the second one, the second minimum technology, is the subject of all non-technical aspects of your organization, or the administrative or management, the technology of management or administration, and that too must be as standard. It must be standard, meaning it works 100% of the time, and that when it's applied, when it's known, and when it's applied, it will create a predictable, determined result. There's got to be a standard of practice, okay, in not only your administration, but for sure in your technical delivery. What are your standards of care? I'm going through this with Bert Deweese, my VP of operations right now. I've been out of the clinic for a number of years, but I'm having him work with me to we're creating. When I show you this little formula, this really simple formula in a bit, we're breaking down what are our standards of practice really truly. What are the minimum competencies of a rebound therapist to deliver? They all come in with various levels of technical training and skill and experience, but we have to standardize how we deliver outcomes and what our expectations are. We brought in so many great people and so many great skills. So, it's both of these things. It's the technology of what you do, the technology of management administration. And this is what I learned by getting trained. I knew that I had a very low level of knowledge in management and administration, many years ago. And I went to work. I've probably by now I've probably studied as many hours or worked on its application as much as I did for my PT degree, and my even including all my CEUs over the years. But I've been doing this for a while, but it takes that level of and I'm not saying everybody has to do that much study, but I am saying that you have to skill up in that area in the technology of management administration, because remember, a technology is something that is not just knowledge of it. You can't just have knowledge of it. You have to actually apply it. And that's where you figure out whether it works or not. because in engineering terms, a truth is something that works 100% of the time. Now, a side note here, just before I go into this, it's a really, really simple formula, and I will ask for you guys to give some examples because I'm sure you guys have some great examples of tools that are already in place on how to scale. But a note on our organization and our organizations and communication, and not just our companies but any company. All organizations have one thing in common, and that's people. And we're dealing with a diverse scale of people, if you will. If you look at your scalability, it's another factor that I didn't mention earlier, but you'd have to look at your people and how scalable are they? How trainable are they? How much knowledge? How willing are they to obtain and apply not only technical knowledge but then this management administrative knowledge just to do their job better. They don't have to run the whole company, but you definitely want this one common denominator, this one common variable. You're in communication with people, and within our organizations, there's tons of communication going on. There's communications, between staff. There's communication, obviously, between every therapist and the public and their families and the docs, and with all your marketing systems. We're getting, as a PT, I'm getting people into communication with their body. It's like there's so many different communication cycles and particles flying around every day. And then, inside of that, there are varied levels, and this will be an important point. There's varied levels of reality or agreement with every one of these communications that's going around in your company. In other words, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but you might have let's say you have a company policy on let's say it's actually a procedure. It's a policy and a procedure on, collections or something like that. And there may be, a wide variance in what people think or how they think that should be applied in receiving the monies that are owed from the public. I'm just saying people can, in the absence of true knowledge, people just tend to make stuff up, which, it happens. It happens in our companies. They just make things up. And, I tell people there's three kinds of information or data that I found in business and communicate with people. It's what someone thinks, which is fine, and what actual data or facts. I'm sorry. It's like there's data and facts is what someone thinks, which is fine. I want to know what some people think about a situation or data or facts, and then there's what someone tells you that someone else thinks, which is just BS. It's not, until you get people to look for themselves, it's really, really difficult to get people to make decision in your organization without your guidance, without, putting something standard there, putting, standard policies and procedures there, because you'll have various levels of reality, and with that comes various levels, lots and lots and lots of different levels of understanding or understandings about how something should be done or how something should be applied. And this is the guidance that we have to give our staff in order to scale our organization, so you can have either multiple clinics or, quite frankly, be able to walk away and or be gone for whatever period of time and know that it's going to continue to operate okay. And more, and like I said before, scale the profitability, because that's a note on this point of reality, which is really what I'm going to be diving into with this formula, this expansion formula, is that while reality is the agreements of your organization, the policy of your organization, the policies that you have in place, and I'm not talking about something that's sitting up on a shelf or it's in a manual or a book or a what do they call it, an employee handbook that's got a bunch of policies listed in it. We're going to break it down here in a moment. I'm not just talking about those things, but the reality of your company is the policy or the agreements of the group, whether they're written or not. Whatever policy's been formed by you, your staff, former staff, someone said, whatever it is the agreement of that group. That is the level of understanding of how things are going to get done or continue to get done or not, right? And these policies sometimes can be, sometimes you can have really great written policies that don't get applied, or they're not even written. People just, like I said, in the absence of true data, people just make things up. It's BS. Sometimes people may, I don't know if you guys ever notice this. And this is one later, Nancy. We're going to definitely have time. I would love to get examples of violation of not necessarily violation as a blatant egregious action, but where someone said something other than what was true about what is written in policy, and then that became the policy of the group going forward, and how things can change so rapidly and go off the rails. But I want to make this point that we're going into this point of reality. All these communications are going on, but there is some level of reality or agreement amongst your group, whether you have written standards on it or not. So, so two things before we're going to get into the subject of the policy of your organization, because it's a major driver in scaling, is that before you get into this subject of looking at what the policy or agreements are inside your company, written or not, you really need, and I mentioned this before, you really need to codify and identify for yourself what is the standard technology of your delivery. Okay, now I'm talking about I'm talking about the patient therapist experience and those outcomes, but you really need to standardize that aspect of it, because that isn't something that a consultant is going to do for you. They can help guide you on how to do that, but they will never tell you what the standard of care needs to be. I'm going back in with Bert right now. I gave my own example, and I brought him out. Some of you guys know I live in Tennessee, and I go back and forth to Kansas where my practices are, where my clinics are. But I brought him out to Tennessee in the fall, and we're still working on this project to, codify or identify. I'm having him look. I'm just giving you a real example at the times when he observes things being delivered in a non-standard way from his viewpoint as the VP of operations, because I turned over that hat to him a long time ago and said, look, you now are responsible for all the technical delivery of this organization. You are the number one PT. You emulate, what I had done clinically, and you do such a great job. But now he needs to go back and clean up, the deviations from those things that are written. But as technology has changed with, EMR systems and how those things are expressed, and I tend to, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but I think sometimes people come in there. Some people are a little crazy, a little crazier than things used to be. There's a lot going on in the environment. I think after 2020, some things changed with people's reactions to things, and I don't want to have that be a total generality for you guys, but for sure, for a couple of years there, you definitely needed to handle the public individual differently. And I think now we've got some economic challenges that make it really interesting to get compliance with a full plan of care, at least in the adult sector, based upon one of the 5 reasons that I found that people tend to not complete their full plan of care, which is true financial stress. There's 4 others, another seminar on that maybe later, but I found that there's 5 main things that cause people. And if you don't put in standard ways in which you want the public handled and delivered to, and as far as outcomes, it's really, really tough to scale. Like I said, it's knowing what cup of coffee you're going to get at Starbucks. I'm not personally a Starbucks fan of the coffee itself, because I don't drink foo-foo drinks. I just drink, straight black coffee. There's a lot better coffees out there. But when I'm on the road and I can't find anything else, I mean, I do seek other kind of coffee shops first, but at least I know what I'm going to get there, every time. It's not a bad cup of coffee. It's just not a cup of coffee that I like. But, they have standardized it. It is going to be the same at every store. And then the second part is to standardize, before you write policy, is to have some standardized administrative systems. I believe, and I'm totally biased, that I think, Survival Strategies has got, the best thing going out there in regards to assisting any practice owner and their administrative team with how to standardize their administrative systems, in those systems in HR, hiring and retention, your overall company policy for sure, but billing, collections, and PR and marketing, and course, referral relations, which is where we started. It was our genesis, and there's some very standard things that have to stay in, no matter who's doing it, in your company, in order to make it work. So there is an expansion formula here. I'll move on to the formula here. We're gonna have plenty of time. I'm gonna be done way early, I think, Nancy, which is good. We can get some examples from some guys and maybe talk about this more if
Cool.
they're willing to discuss it. But so, your professional skill as a technical delivery person, it's very easy. It's very easy to get sucked into only or predominantly, and in most cases, it's the dominant number of staff members in our company to get into standardizing the technical delivery. But standardizing that administration makes it so that you can plug and play with new staff members. So here's the expansion formula I'm talking about. And this does come from the Hubbard Management Systems. This is a direct quote from that. Just 3 simple lines, and I'll go over it several times so you guys can have it, or I can, like I said, I can send this to Nancy and she can send it out. But this really is the simplicity behind what I've found even when I go look at other companies on how they can stably expand, scale, and expand profits too, right? Because without this, your company, your company's technology of delivering all the various technical skills, because I know there's all kinds of specialties inside of all, whether they're adult or pediatric, there's technical variations inside of that are very streamlined. But your technical administrative skill will either be greatly slowed. Your expansion in the area with your technical skill and your administrative skill will either be greatly slowed, stalled, shrink, or just go flat, just stay the same without these 3 steps. So here it is. Number 1, first thing you have to do is provide good policy. It's not just have it on a shelf. You have to provide it to your staff. So this is a little tricky because we have so many policies and procedures that are written around the technology of what we do between our practice management systems and compliance issues with documentation and billing and collections. And you've got all your HR stuff, which to me is super, super significant, right? But if you really looked at your company, and you guys that have done, gotten some administrative help in the area of management, and you look at your organizing chart or your organizing board, there's the term organizing board, but some folks call it a chart, but the various delivery or the various areas of your organization, between the executive and the human resources and your marketing and your finance and your technical delivery and your quality assurance and then your PR, all these, whether you've got one of those organizing boards or not, there needs to be core, fundamental, basic, like no fail, hard stop, good policy there. I'm not talking about the significances of legal and compliance here alone, but provide good policy, number 1. 2, make it, meaning the policy, make it easily knowable. This is where I think most of us break down. I know this is where, we've already got some pretty good policy. We have to be better in my organization, just doing a critical analysis of making it more easily knowable for new guys coming in. The old hats know it because we've been over it. We know when we violate it. It's like gravity. If you don't do it right, we know it works 100% of the time. So when it doesn't happen, we know that it's our fault. But oftentimes I find that people just don't know it, or there's that other class of information I talked about in BS where someone else has an opinion about it or alters it because of their own viewpoint or own opinion on it without consulting someone. We've certainly made some policies different based upon staff originations, and for sure in the area of our procedures, particularly with EMR and billing collection systems and the dynamic softwares that support all of our organizations. It's easy to make adaptations or change. The reason you would make changes so you can expand. So I definitely listen to other people, but we don't alter the policy until we've looked at it from the top of the organization down. And then, like I said, you're responsible to make it known. So one, provide good policy. Two, make it easily knowable. So they can't just have knowledge of it, right? You can't just show someone a policy and say, oh, well, I showed it to them. Well, a couple things can happen. One, they may not have really fully read it and understood it to the level that they could actually apply it. People have misunderstood words, concepts, or disagreements with them, by the way. Sometimes they just, maybe it's contrary to something else they experienced. It's not true to them. It's false to them. There's all kinds of things that can happen when someone reads a simple policy. So if you don't make it easily knowable, meaning they really understand the purpose of it, they really understand, the basic theory behind it. They really understand, and making it, by the way, making it easily knowable, make everything simple. Don't put 5 things in one policy that, make it complex, because you'll lose them. So that's part of making, that's part of providing good policy and making it knowable, is to keep it simple and keep it to one subject if you can. I'd rather have a myriad of policies that are really simple, that stack on top of each other, than one policy that covers, way too much ground. So I'm just giving a general example of making it easily knowable. And then the third one, here's the third one. This is the tough one, man. We're working on 2, and this is what my organization is the weakest in. We're pretty good at 1, and we're getting better at 2. We just have to go back and train more people, which is what we're doing. We're rewriting our training systems and putting them in we're combining them in the digital world, meaning, not only putting them up in the cloud to make them easily accessible, but putting videos and practical applications, a lot of video and pictures and and everything that goes with it, to make it more real to them, to make it more easily knowable. So we're on the pathway for this one. But number 3 is be strenuous in making sure it is applied. This is the hardest part, because you need a team at the top of your organizing chart, your organizing board, your organization, your team. People ask me what our success is. It's my team. I'm week 2 down here in Florida, got a condo down here, doing some training, and these guys are running the show, and they're trained, but you have to be strenuous in making sure it's applied. Well, if you haven't made it knowable, you're going to work your tail off trying to make sure it's applied. Even if you're good at being strenuous, you're going to be working over the top of people not knowing, not having knowledge. Like I said in the beginning, the undercut, right? The undercut is knowledge and technology. You can have the best technology in the world, but if people don't know it, and you're not able to go in and be strenuous about making sure it gets applied, know this: if it's not able to be applied, there's a couple things could be going on. They just don't understand it, which is usually the case. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I go back and figure out what about that policy they don't understand or agree with, right? Because if reality is fundamentally agreement, then there's some kind of disagreement, and it may just be as simple as they didn't understand some part of that policy or some word or concept. Or they really do just they just aren't doing it. They just thought that you weren't going to come back. This is what I find. This is what I've been coaching Bert on, giving you guys a tasty morsel. Bert's been with me a long time, but I just tell him to go back in, because the number of times he thinks, or I shouldn't say he thinks, he has staff members, and you could probably check this with a staff member if you had the gumption to do it, that there are certain things that he tries to put in that when it doesn't get done the first or second time to his satisfaction, or it doesn't stay in, let's just put it that way, it's probably more real, where they do it for a little while and then they drops out again. If you guys ever noticed that they just think he's going to go away. I think he's going to give up because he's so busy, and he's going to go away. But check out number 3, right? Be strenuous in making sure it is applied. Because if you have good policy and it's known, and you make it knowable, and they can duplicate it, they understand it, then and then you get them to apply it as you train them. And you should do that when you train your staff. you're going to have to be strenuous in making sure it's applied. So when you begin writing your policies, keep these three things in mind, is you should start with those standards of delivery and really codify what are the non-negotiables. This is where I started with Bert last October. Dude, just give me a list of the non-negotiables that are currently there, good or bad, the ones that are in and that should never drop out. And give me the ones that you've seen that have dropped out that are just burn your butt. Like you hate it when you see it happening, and you don't seem to have the time to go correct it maybe at the time. But this is what we should be writing the policy on, is writing those standards of delivery or care down. And then also, hopefully if you've got a great VP admin, administrative director, office manager, whatever synonymous term that you want to do, is whoever's good at organizing things, get with that person and you can work on writing up really, good policy, providing good policy that you can make easily knowable in the area of administration to ensure your expansion. Because this is one thing, by the way, that Survival Strategies is really good at. I know in the management program, they helped us tremendously with that, the basis of organizational policy. But here's one thing that they can't do, is they can't set the standard of care, which I already mentioned, but also the code of conduct, if you will. They can help you identify it, but what is the culture? What is the code there? Your culture, your code of conduct, your code of behavior, that should be senior policy in your organization. I think those are some of the things that have to be always in place for you guys to be successful. It's funny that I mentioned, Chick-fil-A. It's like just that there's a difference. I can tell a difference between the guys that buy into it or not when I go through with my grandkids or whatever. I don't go there very often anymore, but when you're in a pinch and in a hurry, you know what you're going to get. But I don't really enjoy eating it. I don't do it very much, but I watch for whether it's sincere on my pleasure, whether it's just a rote thing or whether it's something that they really really believe in. But it is a standard of delivery that they've set forth. Those guys all have to say. I'm assuming there's some kind of a penalty. I'm sure they're being strenuous about making sure it's applied. I know it's kind of a remote example, but just popped into my hand. So there's a key point on this that I want to make, is you're looking at these areas of policy that you need to develop in your company to provide good policy and make it easily knowable. It makes it easier to get it strenuously applied if you really focus on the purpose of why you would write a policy in a given area. Because the purpose of policy is to be able to create expansion. If you looked at every one of your policies and you looked at it and you read it from the viewpoint, will this help me expand? Not just hold things in place, not stay the same, right? But will, the policies you should write first, I guess I should put it this way, are the policies that need to be put in place that will align with that formula that I gave you and create expansion for your company, because that is the purpose of policy, is to create expansion. Yeah, it needs to hold people inside the rails, but you don't really want to be a police officer and just be, babysitting and trying to keep people, to follow the rules. You want to create good policy that will allow you to expand your organization. So I'm going to open the screen up here in a second, because I want to get some examples from guys, if we can here, Nancy. You know a lot of these guys better than I do, but I want to get some examples of some amazingly simple policy that could be easily knowable, and that would either maintain your expansion or create more expansion if you just did it better. I know for us, I'll give you guys a couple examples first. I have a hat for a Rebound employee when they come in, and it's got a few simple key stable points of information, senior information. It's really simple for decision making. It's like the publicly service is our number one priority, right? No matter what's happening, boots on the ground there in the clinic, anything comes up that deals with public servicing, that's what we do first. Okay, there's no other barring the building burning down or some extreme emergency, right? But we just have to really put that in. It's a guiding principle that allows any staff member to make a great decision. You know, so one time that I would let anybody bypass another person's hat if someone needed to be serviced right away and that wasn't happening, we'll just provide the service, right? That's the simplicity of a rebound uh, policy, and we can have these policies in the area of, you know, any area of the company. That's more of a broad reaching one. You can have them in the areas of you know, finance, or, you know, staff handlings, or how you want your, you know, staff conduct, you know, be on work or be on time for work. You know, if you haven't got that policy written down and people aren't showing up on time, they're not on post on time, then look and see if you've got a key basic that's out. You know, and it's that profound. I'm telling you things that I've seen before. You know, when you have staff members on the prior example I gave you on, you know, the public services are number one priority. Sometimes people will dive into doing something administratively, or, go do some other admin cycle first before they'll take care of the person in front of them. It's amazing to me. I've seen it. I've seen it in my own company. I'm like, okay, well, let's do a correction on this person. Let's have them review this policy and see if there's something they didn't understand or agree with. So I'm at that point, I'm being strenuous and making sure it's applied, because I know everybody's read that in my company. But believe it or not, you know, we've had to put something in our attendance policy on you know, on being on time, and you know what that really meant. So it's crazy. And then there would be things in the area of finance too, just on company finance. But I'm going to open my screen up here because I'm not looking at everybody. And I did pretty good, Nancy, because I'm not running over and we have extra time.
You did great, Paul, with no slides. You did great. Awesome, awesome.
Did you like that?
I
Did you
did.
expect that one?
I did. I did. Yeah, no, I thought I knew you'd do great. I knew you'd do great. It's just I love the different styles of the people we have presenting. It's very interesting to me. But yeah, policy. Policy. I noticed that it's like, I've been a realtor for many years, since 2004. And in California, because it's such a litigious state, that the contract to buy a house is like this thick. And every one of those pieces of paper, every one of those clauses, every one of those disclosures was because somebody got sued for something. So it becomes policy. And it's funny because a lot of policy comes out of, like, it's so easy. You just have somebody who's showing up late all the time, showing up late, and you put in a policy. If it isn't written, it isn't true. And you're like, here's the policy, I'm being late. And then they're not side struck or looking at you like you're picking on me because I'm purple, green, yellow. I need a special this because I'm that. You can't. It's just like, here's the policy. Ta-da. And it's so, what's the word? What's the opposite of, like, when something is it's just so, it just is what it is. It's just general. It's like, here it is. Make it work, people. Make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I
Survival's
would,
really good at at getting that policy written. Like, they drag that into you. It's so true. What were you going to say, Paul? Oh,
yeah, and it's super important to make sure. I said this over and over, but really consult their understanding. Don't just give somebody the policy and then, you know, expect that they're going to know it, because it's really not fair. You know, you should consult their understanding and their ability to
that's
apply it.
true.
And
Consult their
you know,
understanding.
as you write up your training systems, you should, you know, those important ones. I mean, listen, I understand on this HR stuff, you've got to give them a handbook, and you may not, you know, check them out on every aspect of that. But I'm now talking about on the delivery of their, whether they're an administrative person or a technical delivery person, they need to be checked out on the key policies of their area and the senior policies of the company, and make sure that they can give examples. And so that's how we're writing our check sheets, Nancy. We've got them up
Wow.
in the cloud, and you're gonna give it back to somebody. You're gonna give examples, or you're gonna do a live demonstration, or you're gonna write an essay or whatever. We're gonna make sure we consult, because then you can come back and be strenuous, making sure.
Right.
No, wait a minute, you knew how to do this, and what happened? And because you will find that other people will tell them something that's not on policy. You know, it does happen in the line of fire, or someone. We've certainly had staff alter policy. Um,
Right.
yeah.
That is correct.
So I was,
Altering the policy.
yeah,
Mm.
love to answer any questions, or get some. I'd love to get some examples of. I think it would be beneficial for everybody on here. This is, I like to, using, stealing from Patrick Bolton, to share and steal. We could do that as a group, on any really core basic policy you guys have found that really has been a key to your success, or an area, the simple ones. I find the simple ones are the cleanest ones. Like I told you before, that the public services are the number one priority. That's what you use in decision making, right?
Right.
And so I don't know how engaged these guys would be to share. I don't see very many people on the screen except for Renee. Renee's
Yeah, we had a bunch of people, jump off. I know they're not the most, I don't know. This is a very receptive crowd. They're very loyal. They show up each week, but they're not the most verbose. They leave the verbosity up to us. Who wants to jump in? Renee, I know you've been around a minute and a half. I know you've got some policy written. What do you got? What's your favorite policy that you think gives you the most, like, glad we have that policy?
Well, I'm struggling with a policy like our makeup policy that therapists aren't following through with what they're supposed to be doing. So my being strenuous about the understanding of it needs to occur.
Ah,
Because they just, the parent says, oh, you're going to be gone next week. Okay, see you the following week. I'm like, no, we've had role playing. We've gone through this. Why do you keep doing
right.
the same thing over and over? And maybe it is an understanding, maybe a deeper understanding of how that affects the company might help them.
Now
what I
this is a parent who's not coming in because the therapist is out.
Yeah.
I would not so much what happens to the company. Go to that Diane Crecelius flex schedule, how harsh she is with that. This can mean that your child, first of all, your child can lose their milestone. They can go back. This is cumulative progress. So that's number one. I put a little withdrawal on that help. And number two, you might lose your spot in the it puts you in a vulnerability, because if, let's say, little Johnny gets sick and then you call out for that one, you're looking at losing your spot there, and you might have to go on a flex schedule, and then we'll call you when we have availability. And if that's in writing and they get that and that's bolded out or in red, I mean, I always put the important bits. I'm like, I'm I'm one of those people that when you get a text from me, you'd be like, why are you screaming at me? Because I put things in like all caps and I highlight them. You know, 'cause I'm like, this is the important bit, people. So I would put it there. They don't care what happens to your company. They care what happens to their kiddo and to their convenience or lack thereof. That's what I would, that's the policy part I would strengthen.
Well, but hey, Renee, who does it fall on? The therapist or someone at the front on the scheduling side at your schedulers, or who does it fall on typically?
Um, to me, it's the therapist not explaining what Nancy was saying. Like, you don't know what's going to happen next. You could get sick. And so then they're missing 2 or 3 sessions and you're going to lose out on your progress. And then, yeah, we can't keep you on the schedule because, hey, you're at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. We need that spot. So the therapist, I think, most of ours are young, so it's hard for them to confront.
Bingo.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good that you're aware of that, Renee, because here's what I found, and this is probably the strenuous part, not so much the bang on the policy, but just you're gonna have to get these guys more comfortable with how they handle those scenarios. Like drilling is the key. Is really just pulling them aside. I mean, really caring for your staff to go, man, I understand this is really hard. I mean, I would just say, hey, it's obviously hard for you to, if you recognize that they're just not confronting it, to say, I really want to help you with this, and let's just go through and you drill these things. It's until they are, because a lot of times they don't have the tools. That it's not a fail. It's not a science for them. It's not like my definition of engineering where it works 100% of the time. Some people probably are willing to schedule. The other thing I'd say in that scenario is to get a prior agreement. You are right, if a therapist get a prior agreement, if they know there's situations where they're going to be gone, They just, you know, you got to be way ahead of it and just make it okay for them, you know, to be with, because they would see someone else, right? Is what the deal is. They just want to see that therapist. Is that the deal? Or,
A lot of the time, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paul, you know what I'm curious to know? Like going back to that lack of confront, like that's a big deal. Like when I ran a PT practice in California, and I had two gals, two front desk gals. One gal super high confront. She was gnarly. She could very nicely, great communication. She could tell a patient anything about why they should come in, what happens, how much they owe, when they're going to owe it. Like she was a bulldog, but with a beautiful demeanor. The other one, not so much. She was afraid. So she would just yes me to death. Yeah, I got that. And then I'd be in my office and I could overhear the front desk and she would not be putting that in. So I put in drilling. So that's a big survival strategies thing is drill, drill, drill. Paul, if we came to your clinic, what would we all see that if we went to 99 other clinics, we would not see? Would we see you drilling? Would we see patter drills? Would we see things actually written up? What would we see that probably 99.9% of the rest of us
Well,
aren't doing?
two simple things that I've seen the most is having a training system in place to begin with, where it's not just the policies, because the making it easily knowable is really a big key. You have to make sure that they've, you know, I think that most people have exposure programs as opposed to training programs. Is a one way to say it. They've exposed them to it, but they haven't really trained them. And the second thing is when somebody's struggling, we give them the benefit of the doubt that we understand it's probably our fault. They didn't either understand it or they haven't really gotten comfortable with drilling it. Is we'll pull them aside. And Janet's great about this. Just pull them aside. We have an actual course room. We have a room. We call it the course room. Take them over and we sit them down and then we just drill the scenario and then we go put them back on post. So we just you know, it gets their confront up. It's kind of like, you know, it's not a horrible thing. It's uncomfortable. It's harder to drill in that scenario with the senior of the company or your senior than it is to go handle the public. And they find that at one for one, they come back and go, oh my God, it happened and I handled it. It was so helpful. That's the biggest difference. The upfront training is we still have to come back and correct people, and we know that they don't get it everything all the time. And you know, we don't drill every scenario either. We don't drill every. I'll tell people all the time. Anybody that's done referral relationship development or done work on the emotional tone scale, you know, when you're dealing with the public or going out with referral sources, it's like going to the zoo. There's all kinds of animals out there, and if you don't know how to tame, if you don't know how to handle snakes, if you're afraid of snakes, you're going to have troubles with snakes. If
That's true.
you don't like
That's
lions, you're
correct.
going to have troubles with lions. You can handle, you know, the others, but I'm trying to make it you know, make it generic or vanilla as an example, but maybe they just haven't run into that scenario of that kind of person. The policy is one thing. What the policy says is one thing. How that public reacts to it and what problem they give the person, not related to the policy, related to the handling of the public individual, is what we spend more time drilling how to handle human emotion and reaction. So I'll leave it at that.
It's really true. Like one of our really trained up clients, I was talking to her about how a lot of people are complaining about their percentage of arrival rate. And it's a training. It really is policy and training and drilling. And so I was asking her about that. She goes, "Oh no, we started implementing like all this policy on it, and our percentage of arrival is 96%." And
Boy,
it's a small, I know. I was like, you are, and this is a newer, very, very, very growing, very fast client of ours that I was very excited about to hear that. But when I hear other people that don't have that kind of training in place and they're like, our percentage, they don't, most of them don't know their percentage of arrival. And then when they do, it's a number that they're pretty shocked at. I mean, just so much money. I want to do a whole thing on, maybe I'll do it for October, like how much money I'm gonna be New Yorkie. I'm gonna channel my Southern girls. How much y'all leave on the table just kills me because I know it. I know how much y'all are leaving on the table. And that's my biggest pet peeve because I know what you guys do with money. It's not like you get money and you run out and you buy a fur coat. You know, you
Right.
guys run out and they buy better equipment and they build things like that tiny town that Jennifer and Wendy built, and they get an OT sensory gym, and they just get better equipment, and they do nice stuff for their staff. So, I mean, this is, you know, whether you're peds or adult, this physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech paths, it just brings in a very helpful hearted person. Sometimes they don't connect the CEO brain with the heart. And Pam
Yeah.
wrote a great thing. Pam said, referring everyone back to our policies in general was my biggest struggle. Now it's my go-to thanks to Joe. Joe's a consultant at SSI. Not saying they are perfect, but this thought process has helped us a lot. That's really great to hear because it is the referring them back. Pam, why don't you just tell us real quick about that, like what it was like before and what it's like now, how that referring them back works. Like what's off your plate as a CEO with that?
Oh, it takes a lot off because before everybody would just pop in, they'd say, hey, and they would say something and I would answer it. And now it's the same for every single person. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off right there. But now we tell them, look it up. Here's where our policies are. Look it up and you tell me what you get out
Well
of this.
said.
And if they don't understand it, then we will explain it to them so there's nothing misunderstood. But just the fact that we've got everything in place. Now, they're not all perfect. We do go in and we revise things as we go that needs to as we progress and as we grow. But for the most part, it's all right there. It's spelled out.
That is so great to hear because I will tell you, it's kind of gotten taken off my plate, but I was speaking to every single owner that came into the Pizza-Palooza group, and now I have other amazing resource specialists that do what I do. But what I could not believe is when I get a new owner, new to us, they don't have to be new, they could be 13 years, 20 staff. The amount of, and if there is any staff on here, don't take this the wrong way. There's a lot of like where owners are in such an overload of being like over a barrel with staff and just all of that constantly coming in with the same question. Diane has you do that. I don't know if you've ever been on a webinar where Diane talks about write on a post-it who's the person that comes in the most. So you're like, Sally, 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 Bob, Sally, Sally. You got to correct Sally. But it's just the amount of over the barrel of like not wanting to lose staff, of not wanting to upset them. I always liken it to, and again, this is why I say if there's any staff, don't get insulted. It's like teenagers. They're not the owner for a reason. They don't want that liability and that responsibility right now. Yeah, you might get a right-hand person that's like amazingly flawless. But for the most part, people want to know that there is a lifeguard at the deep end of the pool and you're an owner, you're the lifeguard. They feel actually safe and contained and happier knowing that there is a lifeguard at the deep end of the pool because big business and helping kiddos and touching bodies is big liability. It's big business on some level. If you're not a Costco, you don't own 50,000 Walmarts, but it's big in the sense of the amount of responsibility, liability, and what you're actually trying to accomplish. And so they're in a deep end of a pool. They have to know that the lifeguard is there. And when you are lax with your policy, you're going to go home and just pull your eyeballs out and they're just going to run amok and feel. And then when you go to put that change in, I don't know, Pam, when you started the program, I don't know if you had pushback, but people don't like change. So when you put it in at first, there can be ridgy and stuff like that. I don't know if you went through that, but then once they get in, they actually start appreciating it because they know what is expected of them and what they can do and what they can't. Nobody wants to be floundering around without that life raft. Policies like life raft in the deep end, along with the lifeguard. That's my analogy of the day.
We did have that issue. And, I felt like before we had some inconsistency and now we don't. And I think that people like that consistency and they like that they know where to go for those policies. And it makes a huge difference. It really does.
Wow, that's great. That is awesome, awesome to hear. We're way over, way over. I have to jump off, but does anybody else have anything for Paul? Anybody? Bueller? You're all looking at him. Terry's laughing. Carrie's like, this girl. Paul, you have any wrap up words for us?
No, hey, no, I enjoyed it, and I've got to go though. I'm
Oh,
late
yeah.
for an appointment. Okay.
You're wolfing down lunch.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
no, I
guys,
gotta like.
thank you. We'll see you next time. The June 5th one is going to be amazing. We're going to have Paul and Uplift and Paul's girl, Wendy. I think that's what we're going to have. We're going to firm that up. I'll see you guys in Dallas. I know I'll see Pam. I don't know who else I'll see. Oh, the poll. Guys, the poll, the poll, the poll. Carrie's going to kill me. Do the poll. It really helps us. All right. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.